This is lesson 1 of CSS styling section of website design with HTML and CSS tutorial. In the last HTML section of our course, you created the basic web page using HTML, which is very plain on its own. We will now talk about CSS styling and how you can apply different styles to the web page. So let's get started. The beautiful websites that you see across the internet are styled with a variety of tools, including CSS. CSS is used to define styles for your web pages. To start styling your website, you need to write a CSS code. You can do it in any text editor like Notepad and save it as a style sheet. The file should not contain any HTML code. This is one of the sample of CSS styling file. The code on the slide applies light blue background color to the web page and applies navy color for H1 element and gives 20 pixels of margin from the left side of the H1 text. The style sheet file must be saved with a .css extension and added as a link in the head section of the HTML file. When a browser reads a style sheet, it will format the HTML document according to the information in the style sheet. The attribute type defines the content in between the style tags. Text /CSS indicates that this content is CSS. Here is the code that we need to include in the head section of HTML document in order to apply the CSS styling to the web page. Now let us move ahead with our exercise that will explain how to apply styling to web page. Let us add the link to style file, that is style.css, to the head section of HTML code and create a CSS file that will contain styling code. We will create a new file called sample.html. Let's right click new and text file. Give the name sample.html and click on yes. So this is sample.html file. Let's open it in web expression 4. Let's type the basic coding for our HTML document, that is doc type HTML, and add HTML tag. In between HTML tag, add head tag, and after head tag, let's add body tag, body, and close the body tag. Now let's give the reference to our CSS file using link and set the relation to style sheet. Select style sheet from the drop down list and select type and text CSS type. Third attribute is href and give the name of the CSS file, that is sample.css, that we are going to create after this. Here we have simply specified the name of the file, that is sample.css file, because we are going to create the sample.css file in the same folder where our sample.html file is present. If you put the CSS file in different folder, you will have to specify the complete path of the sample.css file along with its folder structure. Now let us create styling file. Let's move to the folder structure. Right click new file and then give the name sample.css. The .css is an extension of styling code. Let's edit the sample.css file in web expression 4. Add body tag. In between square braces, type background hyphen color and specify the color to light blue and add semi-comma at the end of the line. This is the basic syntax for writing your styling for different elements in your HTML document. Now here whatever you will write in curly braces, that style will be applied to the entire body of your web page. Now let us add h1 tag in our body. Type h1 and give some text. Introduction to CSS styling. Let's save the changes. Now flip to sample.css file and let us add a styling for h1 element. In between curly braces, write margin hyphen left and 25 px, that is 25 pixel, and color navy and semi-comma, and save the changes. Now let us view our page. Right click and open in Google Chrome. Notice the background color is set to light blue, heading color is set to navy blue. That's all about lesson 1, Introduction to CSS. In the next lesson, you will learn CSS selector, properties and values. Thank you for listening and have a great day. This is lesson 2 of CSS styling section of our HTML and CSS tutorial. In the last lecture, you learned how to apply styling to the web page using CSS. We will now talk about CSS selector, properties and values, and how you can make use of selectors, properties and values to apply styling to a web page. We will also do a small exercise where I will show you what exactly selectors and properties and values are. So let's get started. Before styling, first of all, you need to learn some rules how to do this. The CSS rule set consists of a selector and the declaration blocks. The selector which points to the HTML element you want to style. The declaration block which contains one or more declarations separated by semicolon. Each declaration includes a CSS property name and a value separated by a colon. Selectors generally target an attribute value or ID or class value or type of element H1 or P, etc. As it is displayed in the picture on the slide, P and H1 are nothing but selectors, and in the picture shown on the right hand side is declaration that applies on the selector. Once an element is selected, a property determines the style that will be applied to that element. Numerous properties can be used like background, color, font size, height, and width. In the code that is on the slide, you see defined color and font size properties that are applied to all P elements. Now that you know what are selectors and declarations, including its properties and values, let's apply this coding syntax to complete our exercise. Let's create one H1 tag or H3 tag and paragraph, and let's set its color and font size. Let me flip to the folder of HTML and CSS sample page. This is sample.html and sample.css file open in Web Expression 4. Let us add a break at the end of H1 tag. Let us add BR and close the BR tag. Now let us add H3 element, close the H3 element and add some text within H3 element, CSS selectors and declaration. After H3 tag, let us add P element and close the P element and add some text within P element. Let me write some text. This is a paragraph for CSS selector and declaration section. Let's save the changes and add some CSS styling for H3 tag. Let us add H3 and in curly braces color colon blue semicolon. Here H3 element that we have written before curly braces is nothing but a selector, and whatever we have written in between curly braces that are declarations. So the color which is at the left hand side of colon is a property, and whatever is written at the right side is a value. So blue is the value which is applied to color property. Now let us add some declarations for paragraph as well. P and in curly braces let's write some declarations color blue, and before that let's add font size for the H3 element, font size 32 pixels and semicolon, and let us apply font size for paragraph, font size semicolon is missing, okay, font size and 32 pixel and semicolon. Actually we will change the color of a paragraph to maroon semicolon and save the changes. Let us refresh our page in Google Chrome and see the changes. Yeah, this is the H3 element with blue color and paragraph with maroon color. That's all about lesson 2, CSS selector properties and values. In the next lesson you will learn something more about CSS selectors. Thank you for listening and have a great day. This is lesson 3 of CSS styling section of our HTML and CSS tutorial. In the last lecture, you learned how to apply styling to the web page using CSS selector properties and values. We will now talk about CSS selectors in more detail. Selectors classification based on element, class, ID, universal selector and grouping selector. We will also complete an exercise where I will show you how you can write CSS declaration that uses all these classification of selectors. So let's get started. You need selectors to identify which HTML elements you are going to style. Selectors are classified by different element types, classes, and ID, etc. We will discuss some of its types as listed on the slide. Those are CSS element selector, CSS class selector, CSS ID selector, universal and group selectors. Let us first understand what is element selector. The HTML selector selects HTML elements based on the element name. Example of an element selector is displayed on the slide. P stands for paragraph and all the style declarations that we write within P element CSS selector, that styling will be applied to all the paragraph elements within the HTML document. HTML elements can also have attributes. One common attribute is the class attribute. So you can select an element by its class attribute. So the class selector selects HTML element within specific class attribute. To select elements within a specific class, write a period or a dot character followed by the class name. The paragraph element in the example 1 has class attribute. Within the p tag, the class attribute is set to my class. To select this element, we could use the CSS selector with the class attribute my class. More than one class name can be added to HTML elements class attribute. For example, there is a heading element as shown in the example 2 that needs to be green and bold. You could write two CSS rules and add multiple classes to an HTML element class attribute by separating them with a space. Example of more than one class name is shown in example 2 on the slide. So class is one of the common attributes. So you can select an element by its class attribute and apply styles based on the selected classes. Now let us move ahead to understand CSS ID selector. If you want to style HTML element uniquely, use ID attribute by adding it to the element. Example of HTML code that adds ID attribute to an element is displayed on the slide. The ID selector uses the ID attribute of an HTML element to select a specific element. CSS can select HTML elements by their ID attribute. To select an ID element, use hash character followed by the ID of the element. Example of CSS code that selects ID attribute of the HTML element is displayed on the slide. The CSS rule displayed on the slide will be applied to the HTML element with ID equal to para1. The universal selector selects all the HTML elements on the page. The universal selector is indicated by an asterisk or a star. The CSS rule that is displayed on the slide will affect every HTML element on the page. It will center align all elements and set red color to all the elements on the web page. Now let us move ahead and understand CSS grouping selector. The grouping selector selects all the HTML elements with the same style definition. It's better to group the selectors to minimize the code. To group selectors, separate each selector with a comma. Example of grouping selectors is displayed on the slide. The CSS rule defined in the example applies styles to all the HTML elements listed and separated by comma, that is H1, H2 and P element. That's all about theoretical part of selectors classification. Now let's move ahead and apply all these CSS selector types using a real world example. This is sample.html file open in web expression 4. We already have one paragraph element. Let us add one more paragraph element. Let's add p tag. In between p tag, let's add some text CSS selector or CSS element selector and save the changes. Let us flip to sample.css file. Change the color of paragraph element to red and align text to center. Text align center semicolon. Save the changes and browse the sample.html file in Chrome browser or refresh the page if it is already open. You can see the paragraph element. Both the paragraph elements are centrally aligned and color has been changed to red. This was one of the example of CSS element selector. You can use element of your choice such as paragraph, H1, H2, H6 elements, etc. And it will apply the styling to all the elements based on the selector element that you specify in the CSS file. Now let us see how you can use class to apply styling. Add a new paragraph element underneath CSS element selector paragraph. Add paragraph and then add an attribute class and specify the class name as my class. Add some text within P element, that is CSS class selector. Save the changes. Now let us move to the sample.css file. Let us add dot my class. Remember, we use period or a dot in front of a class name to apply the styling to a particular class. Now in a curly braces, give the styling definition. Set text align to center, center and semicomma. Let's give the color to green, color colon green semicomma. Save the changes. Let us refresh our HTML page, sample.html page, or open it in Chrome and refresh. Notice the paragraph color has been changed to green and it is centrally aligned, and all the other paragraph elements that are not changed. Notice only the paragraph element for which we have set its class attribute to my class has been changed to green color and text has been aligned to center. Now let us see how you can specify more than one class name. Let us add one more element under P element, that is H3, and add class attribute and specify a name green and bold. Let us add some text within H3 element. CSS green bold class selector. Let us save the HTML file and flip to sample.css file. Add dot green CSS selector and within curly braces give the styling definition. Let us add the color to green and semicomma, and one more class selector, that is dot bold in curly braces font weight colon bold semicomma, and save the changes. Refresh the HTML page and you can see one more H3 element has been displayed with the green and bold text. That's how you can apply more than one classes to a particular element. Now let us see how you can use CSS ID selector. Add a P element underneath H1 element and add ID attribute. Specify ID name to para1. Add some text within P element, CSS ID selector. Save the HTML page. Let's flip to sample.css file and add hash para1. Now notice we have specified hash before the name of the ID selector. Within curly braces, let's give some style definitions. Color, let's set color to navy, and background color to fuchsia semicomma. Let us set width to 30% semicomma. Save the changes and refresh the web page, and you can see the CSS ID selector has been displayed with the specified styling. Now let us move ahead with the next selector type, that is CSS grouping selector. Let us add few heading elements underneath P element. Let's first add H2, add some text, CSS grouping selector. Underneath H2 add H4 element and give some text, CSS grouping selector example. Save the changes and flip to sample.css file and use all these h2 and h4 elements in a grouping selector with comma h2, h4 and p element, and add some styling background color to aqua, semicomma, and let's align text to left and save the changes. Refresh the web page. You can see it has applied styling to all the groups we have specified in the CSS styling. This is how you can use comma separated elements to specify styling to more than one element type. Now let us move ahead to the universal selector. In sample.css file at the top before body, let us add star, and in curly braces let's give some styling. We use star to specify a universal selector. Let's align text to center and text align colon center semicomma, color to blue semicomma, and remove all the other stylings that we have specified. Remove everything, save the changes and refresh the web page. You can see it has applied that styling to each and every element in our web page. That's all about lesson 3, CSS selector classification, classes and IDs, and universal and group selectors. In the next lesson, you will learn text styling and formatting. Thank you for listening and have a great day. This is lesson 4 of CSS styling section of our HTML and CSS tutorial. In the last lecture, you learned selector classification and different selector types such as element, class, ID selector, universal selector, and grouping selector. We will now talk about text styling and formatting, how you can choose different look for your website using different font sizes, font family, etc. I will also walk you through a demo of a new website that sets primary typeface for your website. So let's get started. First thing you need to do when creating a style for a website is to choose primary typeface font, font family of the text, and text color. Use font family and color properties. Also, there are other properties that can be changed like size, weight, and so on. This is one example that sets font family to Helvetica Neue for website. The font size property sets the size of text using common length values, including pixels, em units, percentage points, or font size keywords. The example on the slide sets the font size of a website to 14 pixels. Font size values can be set in pixels, and if you set the text size using pixels, it gives you full control over the text size. To allow user to resize the text, use EM as shown in the second example. One EM is equal to 16 pixels and the default text size in browser is 16 pixels. With EM size, it is possible to adjust the text size in all browsers. Percents are also scalable like EMs. However, 100% is equal to the current font size. The third example shows how you can set the font size using percentage. Font size keywords such as large, medium, small, etc. can also be used to specify the font size like it's shown in the last example on the slide. To change text to italics, use the font style property. The font style property has four values. First one is normal. Normal value returns text to its normal style. Second is italic and it sets text to italic. And two other values are oblique and inherit. Using oblique, browser displays an oblique font style, and inherit specifies that a property should inherit its value from its parent element. Don't worry if it's not clear at the moment, you will understand it better after completing exercise using these values. To style text as bold or to change the specific weight of a typeface, use the font weight property. The font weight property has keyword and numeric values. Keyword values are normal, bold, bolder, lighter, and inherit. And these are the examples which uses a class selector to change the text style to bold and lighter. Now let us create a sample web page and apply primary typeface for a website using all these text styling and formatting. Let us create a new HTML file. Right click new and text document. Give name webpage.html. Create one more file for CSS styling and give the name webpage.css. Let us open both these files in Web Expression 4. right click and open with web expression 4. In webpage.html, create a HTML template using doc type HTML head and body tags. Let us add head tag, and within head tag, after head tag, let us add body, and within head tag, give a title to our web page. In between title, give some text that will be shown on the title bar of your web page, that is sample text styling and formatting. Now let us add a link to our CSS file using link relation style sheet. Specify the path of our CSS file in href attribute. Specify webpage.css path. Close the link tag, and in the body tag let us add some elements. Add h1 element, and in h1 element give some text, CSS text styling and formatting. Let us add paragraph, p tag. In between p tag, specify some text. This is a sample of text styling and formatting. Save all the changes and let us move to webpage.css. Let us add body, and in body specify font element and choose some family, font family to Franklin. Save the changes and open a webpage.html in browser to see the changes. And you can see the CSS styling or a font family has been applied to all the elements of our web page. Now let us change the font family to Courier New and check the changes by refreshing the page. You can see the font family has been changed to Courier. Now let us add few more elements to our webpage.html. Let me add one unordered list and few of the list items. We will create an unordered list which will have few items, and in those few items we will add all the topics that we are going to cover in this exercise. So let's get started with the first item and topics to be covered in the first item. In the next list item, let us add font family, and in the third list item, we are going to cover font size, third font style, and the fourth font weight. Let us save the changes and move to webpage.css and add a background image. To specify a background image, you need to specify the path of the file using a URL tag, or you can just pick the URL from the drop down and move to the path where your background file is present. We are going to use this background image.png file. Save the changes and refresh the page. You can see the background image has been displayed and all the topics unordered list has been displayed. An unordered list is not clearly visible at the moment. Let us modify the HTML file to make the list clearly visible. Let me flip to our webpage.html, and here we need to wrap this unordered list in between a div element. You can see there is one starting element div and this is ending element, and we have applied a class called wrapper. And now let us move to the webpage.css file and use this wrapper class to modify some styling. And within wrapper, give background color to some gray or blue color so that the list is clearly visible. And in the body tag, let us add some margin so that it will move from the left side, and apply color white. Save the changes and refresh the web page. You can see Now the contents are clearly visible on the web page. Now let us add some font size and font weight. First of all, remove bold element within the first element of list item and apply one class on the list item, the first list item, and give some name to the class, that is daring, and use the class name in CSS file dot daring in between curly braces. Add font size and provide some font size using pixels. Give 29 pixels in font size and add semicolon. Save the changes and refresh the web page. And you can see the first list item has been changed and the font size is applied as 29 pixels. Now we will remove this 29 pixels and add a font size using percentage, that is 30% and semicolon. Save the changes and refresh the web page. You can see the first list item size has been changed to 30%. Let us remove 30% and specify the font size using EM, that is 3EM. 3EM is equal to 48 pixels, and now you can see the list item has been changed. Now let us remove EM and specify the font size using the keywords that are available. Let's use XX large and save the changes and refresh the web page, and the list item size has been changed to large. Now let us revert all the font size changes, that is XX large, and specify the font size in pixels, that is 30 pixel, semicolon. Save the changes, and now let us add font style, that is italic, semicolon. Save the changes and refresh the web page, and the first list item style has been changed to italic. Now here we have multiple options: italic, normal, oblique and inherit. You can use any one of these. Let's use normal now and specify the font weight. Use the font weight attribute, and here are some of the values of font weight. You can use any one of these. Let's use bolder and save the changes and refresh the web page. You can see the bold list item has been displayed. That's all about lesson 4, text styling and formatting. In the next lesson, you will learn background styling. Thank you for listening and have a great day. This is lesson 5 of CSS styling section of our HTML and CSS tutorial. In the last lecture, you learned text styling and formatting, how to specify different font family, size, font style and font weight. We will now talk about background styling, how hex code can be specified in background color property in CSS, and how image source can be specified in background image property. I will also walk you through a demo where we will change the background image and color of a web page created in our earlier session. So let's get started. CSS supports a wide variety of colors. The numeric system gives us an opportunity to use the whole spectrum of colors which are supported by major browsers. The easiest way to describe a color is a hex code which represents three separate values that specify the labels of the component colors. Hex code begins with a hash and is followed by 6 hex values or 3 pairs of hex values. For example, hash 9C4BCC. This is one of the example of setting background color using hex code. To change the background of an element in the quickest way is to add a single color background using the background color property. The background color property is used for setting solid background colors. Instead of background color, you can add a background image to an element. Use the background image property, and there must be an image source identified by a URL function. The URL function value is the background image path. Now let us create a new website which will apply background color and background image to a web page. These are two newly created files, webpage.html and webpage.css, and this is open in web expression 4. Webpage.html file is blank at the moment. When you open it in the browser, you can see the blank page. Now let us add a link to a webpage.css link and relation style sheet, href webpage.css, and close the link tag. Let us give title to our web page, title, and give a text title to background styling and save the changes. Within body element, let us add h1 tag, and within h1 tag type text background styling, and after h1 tag let us add a paragraph element. Within p element type some text, example of background color and background image. Save the changes. Let us move to webpage.css and add a background color to body, and in curly braces add a background color colon, and you can pick a color from the pick color dialog box. Double click on the pick color and you will see whatever color you will select, you will see the hex value over there, and you can copy this hex value and paste it in the CSS file, or you can just select a color and click on OK and save the changes. Now when you open the webpage.html in Chrome, you will see the background color has been set and h1 and paragraph elements has been displayed. Let us change the styling of h1 and paragraph elements so that it's clearly visible. Let's move to webpage.css and give h1 and p, and within curly braces set the color of the text to white, or you can just pick the white color from the color dialog box, and you can see FF is the code for white color, and you can just type with hash and the hex code value and save the changes and refresh the page, and color is set to white. Now in webpage.html you can see the paragraph element. Now let us change the background color of a paragraph element. Add a p selector and in a style definition add a background color to gray, or type the hex code that is hash 1C263E. Save the changes and refresh the web page, and you can see the background color of the paragraph has been changed to gray. Now let us move ahead and add a background image instead of setting a background color. First of all, comment background color property in body element. Let's comment it with the / and star. Now let's set a background image and URL or pick URL. You can specify the path of the file that you are going to set as a background image. Let's copy and paste the name of the image file, that is humanresources.jpg, or type it humanresources.jpg and semicolon. Save the changes and refresh the web page, and there you go. You see the background image has been set to our web page. Here an image has been repeated at the right side of our web page, and to remove this repetition let us move to the CSS file and add a property background repeat equal to no repeat, so that it will not repeat the image, and refresh the web page, and now you can see there is only one image on the web page. Now to occupy the whole space of the web page, let us specify the background size to 100%. Background size colon 100% semicolon. Save the changes and refresh the web page, and this is how you can specify the image on our web page. That's all about lesson 5, background styling, background color and background image. In the next lesson you will learn tables and table styling. Thank you for listening and have a great day. This is lesson 6 of CSS styling section of our HTML and CSS tutorial. In the last lecture, you learned how to apply background color and background image to a web page or any other HTML element on the web page. We will now discuss about table styling, how you can apply styling to table head, table data elements within a web page. I will also walk you through a demo where we will create a table and apply styling to that table. So let's get started. To make a table look more attractive, you need to style it. In order to specify table borders, use the border property. The example on the slide sets solid black border to table, table head and table data elements, and the thickness of the table border is 1 pixel. The border collapse property sets whether the table border should be collapsed into a single border. That means when you just set table border, it applies double line border to a table by default, and you can set it to single border using collapse border option. Example on the slide shows how to set single border to a table. To change width and height of a table, use width and height properties like it is shown on the slide. The first example sets the table width to 100% of the page, and second example sets the height of the table head row to 50 pixels. The text align property sets the horizontal alignment of the content in the row or column. Text can be aligned to the left, center, or right side of the web page. By default, the content of row elements are center aligned and the content of column elements are left aligned. First example of the slide, left aligns the content of a table head row. To change the vertical alignment of the content in table rows and columns, use the vertical align property. Content of a table can be vertically aligned and can set it at the top, bottom or middle of the table. By default, the vertical alignment of the content is middle. Second example on the slide sets the height of the column content to 50 pixels and vertically aligns the content to the bottom of the column. Now let us create a table within HTML document and apply all this styling to the table. This is the same webpage.html file that we used in our previous lesson. Now let us add a table in this HTML document. To save the time for typing the code, let me just copy the code that is already typed and paste it in our HTML document. So this is the code that is already written by me, and let's paste it here and save the changes. And this is the table structure, and this is the table head, and this displays all the headings of the table, and this is table body, and which has three different rows with the content. Let us save the changes, and you can see the preview of the table at the bottom side of this window. And let's preview this in a Google Chrome. Open it in Google Chrome, and there you go, you see the table over here on the web page. Now let us move ahead and apply styling to this table. Let me flip to webpage.css file, and in the webpage.css file, let's type the style definition for table, table header and table columns, and let's apply a border 1 pixel of thickness and solid border, and the color of the border should be black. Semicolon, save the changes and refresh the web page. And here is the table with the border. If you notice the styling of the border, it is double line at the moment. Let's set it to single using the collapse property. Let us add one more table styling in the same table selector. Let us add border collapse and collapse. Semicolon. Save the changes and refresh the web page, and there you go, you see a single border. Now let's add a color and set it to white. Hash FFFFFF. This is the hex code for white color, and the content are white now. Now let us set height and width of the table. Let's type table and in a curly braces width 100%. This will set the table width to 100% of the web page. Refresh the web page and you see a table with 100% width. Let's set it 80 actually. Save the changes and refresh the web page. There you go. And now you can see the table header. We can set the height of the table header using a table head and in curly braces write height to 50 pixels, semicolon. Save the changes and refresh the web page, and there you go, you see a table header with 50 pixel. Now let's set the color, background color to gray, and this is the background color. Now let's move ahead and set the text alignment of the table. As we already discussed, the table header contents are by default centrally aligned, and you can change this alignment to left, right, or center as required. Now let's set the text alignment to the left of the table header. Add text align property and write the value left. Save the changes and refresh the web page. You see the text contents of the table header is left aligned. Now let's change the vertical alignment of the table. And to change the vertical alignment, type the table data selector and in the curly braces, type vertical align colon and bottom. This will align the column content vertically at the bottom of the column. Let's set the height of the table data row to 40 pixels. Height colon 40 pixels. Save the changes and refresh the web page, and there you go. All the column contents are vertically aligned at the bottom of that column. Now let's change the alignment to center and see the changes. The value is middle and refresh the web page and the contents are centrally aligned. That's all about lesson 6, table styling and alignment of the table. In the next lesson you will learn CSS image positioning. Thank you for listening and have a great day. This is lesson 7 of CSS styling section of our HTML and CSS tutorial. In the last lecture you learned how to apply styling to various elements of a table. We will now discuss about CSS image positioning, how to set image positioning and how to apply float property, height and width to an image. I will also walk you through a demo where we will add an image and apply CSS styling for image positioning. So let's get started. To set positioning of image, use the float property. The float property let an image float left to the text in a container. Originally for floating images inside blocks of text, the float property became one of the most commonly used tools for creating multiple column layouts on web pages. The float property can have one of these values that are displayed on the slide. None value is the element that does not float and it is a default value. When the float property is set to left, the elements floats to the left of its container, and when the float property is set to right, the elements float right of its container, and initial value sets this property to its default value. Inherit inherits this property from its parent element. This is an example of CSS image positioning. In this example, it applies left floating 400 pixels width and 10 pixels right margin to an image. Now let us move ahead to add an image in our HTML document and apply styling for image positioning to that image. This is a newly created file webpage.html and webpage.css. Let us give a title to our web page, CSS image positioning. Now let us add some elements in our body tag. Let us add h1 tag, and within h1 tag add some text, CSS image positioning example. Save the changes and let us add one div element and give id wrapper div, and this id we will use in our CSS file. Let us add image source and pick the image file human resources.jpg. Give some alternate text human resources. Close the image tag and you can see the preview at the bottom side. Image has been displayed and title is also displayed. Now let us move to webpage.css file and copy the id hash, paste the id tag, and within curly braces let us apply width to our div tag. Let us give 40 pixels 40% and give 40% height semi-comma. Let us add border to our div element 1 pixel solid and black. Save the changes and refresh the web page, and you can see the image has been displayed. And here if you scroll down to the web page you will see the div tag is hidden behind the image. So to make it visible, let us modify our styling in webpage.css file so that it will be clearly visible. Now let us give ID to our image HR, and let us use this image HR ID in our CSS file, hash image HR, and in the curly braces apply maximum width and give the width 29 pixels. Save the changes and refresh the web page, and you can see the changes over here and the div tag is clearly visible. Let us change the width to 80% and save and refresh. There you go. Now the image is displayed between div tag. Now let us move ahead and apply a float property to an image, and before that let us do some modifications in the size of image and div tag. Change the size of the image maximum width to 400 pixels and change the width of div tag to 29 and height to 500 pixels. Save the changes and refresh the web page, and this is how it looks. Add float property to an image, float colon left. This will apply a left floating to that image. Now let us add margin 10 pixel from all the sides of the image. This will give a 10 pixels of margin to that image from all of its sides so that the div tag is clearly visible. Save the changes and refresh, and there you go. This is how you can apply a float. Now let's change the floating to right. Save and refresh, and there you go. You will see the right floating. Change the floating to inherit and save and refresh, and this is how inherit property looks. That's all about lesson 7, CSS image positioning. This was the last session of second section of our course. In the third section you will learn about fixing and uploading a website on World Wide Web. Thank you for listening and have a great day. This is first lesson of third section of our HTML and CSS tutorial. In the last two sections, you learned basics of HTML and CSS. In this lesson, you will learn how to fix and debug a website or HTML and CSS code. I will also walk you through a quick example of fixing errors in HTML web page. So let's get started. Fixing HTML and CSS codes are necessary when building any web project. Debugging is partially technical and partially intuitive process that's only mastered with practice. As you work on more projects, fixing and debugging will become more obvious. When debugging, the first thing you need to do is to check for syntax errors and make sure you didn't leave any typos or mistakes. And next, look at the whole page and try to improve the design. Now let's take a quick exercise on how you can fix and debug HTML and CSS code. Let me flip to our sample project. This is a simple HTML file, htmlerrors.html, and it has got head tag, body tag, and within head tag you have titles, and in body we have h1 and paragraph elements, and we have also included this htmlerrors.css file to apply styling to the web page. Now let's take a quick example on errors. Let's first browse this file on the browser, and this is how it looks like. Let's flip to our code and let's make some mistake or typo in our href where we have mentioned CSS file. Save the file and refresh the web page, and file is broken or a styling is broken now. Now the question is how to find out the issue and debug and fix it. And in order to find out an issue and fix the error, on the browser page, press F12 button and it will open this kind of developer tools. And under source tab, you will be able to see all the files that are there in your project. And here you can see sample errors.html file is present, but CSS file is not present in the folder. Now in order to check the error, go back to the code and see the typo and fix the error. Save the changes and go back to the browser and refresh the page, and again the formatting is back on the page. And our styling file htmlerror.css is also back in the list of our source file. This is how you can fix errors using developer tools tab. That's all about first lesson, fixing and debugging HTML and CSS code. In the next lesson, you will learn how to upload website to World Wide Web. Thank you for listening and have a great day. This is second lesson of third section of our HTML and CSS tutorial. In the last lesson, you learned about fixing and debugging HTML and CSS code. We will now talk about uploading website on the internet. I will also walk you through a demo where I will show you how to upload a newly created website on the internet. So let's get started. There are two things that you should know about website management. The first is every website must have a domain name. And the second is in order to make your website accessible on the internet, you must use web hosting services. To host your website, you need to have a zip file of website. Inside the zip folder has to be two files. One of them index.html, which is the most common name used for default page, and style.css, which is a visual design of the web page. For some of the hosting services, the zip file is not necessary. You can directly upload files to the folder. Let us move ahead with our exercise where I will show you step-by-step process on how to host your website using 000 web host and make it accessible for everyone. First of all, let's browse 000webhost.com website, and here click on sign in page. If you already have an account created, you can directly sign in, or you can sign up here to create your new account in a 000 web host platform. Let's sign up for the first time. Let me provide my email ID in the email ID box. This is my email ID, and after entering your email ID, provide a strong password. Repeat the password, and after repeating the password, click on sign up button. And once the sign up process is completed, your account will get created in 000 web host platform. Now go back to your inbox and verify your email using a verification link. Click on the button that is there in your email and it will verify your email address for the account. And once the verification is done, you can browse through the 000 web host platform to host your website. After email verification is completed, click on the get started button and you will arrive at this page, and here click on the others tab. Skip the process and give name for your project or for your website. Let's give some unique name, sample HTML CSS. This is going to be our name of our website. Provide some unique password and click on the go. Now here upload your website. It will open a file manager where you can upload your files. Public_HTML, this is going to be our folder where we are going to upload all our website files. To upload the files of your website on the 000 web host platform, click on the upload button that is present on the toolbar. Navigate to the folder where all your files are present. Select all the files and click on upload. This will upload all these files to this internet platform, and refresh. Go back to the website list page, and here you will see all the configuration settings for your website and URL of your website. Click on the URL and you will be able to browse your website here. At this point of time, you will not be able to browse your website or a web page because the default file name should be index.html. So let's go ahead and rename the file name index.html. Right click on the file name and click on rename button. Provide the name index.html. Rename, and let's go back to the URL and refresh the page. As you can see, our website is hosted on the internet. Take a note of one thing, that there are plenty of other paid hosting providers available such as Hostinger, GoDaddy, etc. You can choose any one of them according to your preference. For our learning purpose, we have used this platform as it is free of cost and it is easy to quickly host our sample website. That's all about second lesson, uploading a website. This was the last lecture of our course HTML and CSS tutorial. Here you have successfully completed HTML and CSS tutorial. Congratulations for completing this, and I hope you enjoyed learning and had fun while creating web pages on your own. Thanks again for joining and completing my course. Have a great day and happy learning.